Part three. This is where the rubber hits the road this morning. You know, my prayer this morning, I've got these words down there which I find quite interesting. I've got these at the beginning of the week. My prayer is that the Holy Spirit would come to you individually this morning and have a conversation with you about you. That he would come and have a conversation with you about you. Not about anybody else. You know, no, you can't blame anybody else and I'm a victim. No, have a conversation with you about you. And he wants to do that. He wants to come and have a conversation with us. Me about me, Jenny about Jenny, Steve about Steve, Derek about Derek, and so on. So we're continuing on the rejection route. And this morning I want to look at the fruit and the causes. I don't know how far I'll get. I'm prepared for the next few weeks, so I'll just see how far we get. I'm aware this morning there'll be a lot of content thrown up on the screen. So I will put all this on the WhatsApp group for people to see and go through whenever you have got time. Because there's no way in a million years you're going to get all that. That's going to come up there and process it. You won't be able to. So you can have my notes if you want them. It's fine, I don't mind. There's no copyright on it for me. You can have my notes, or you can have the PowerPoint, or I can just send you the information. But I can email it to you, but I'll put it on the WhatsApp group as well, if you want to see it. But I left off last week by saying that rejection brings a reaction for some outwardly and for others inwardly. For some it's visible, for others it's invisible. For some it's internal, for some it's external. But either way, it brings a reaction in our lives. And each root, whether it be the root of rebellion, the root of self-protection or self-rejection, holds a place in our lives because of trauma, past experiences, things that have been spoken or said to us. And sometimes when some people haven't said or done anything with intention to harm, but sometimes we have taken it with the intention to harm, and it affects our lives. But each root will produce certain types of fruit. And that's what we're going to look at in just a few moments. But I just want to give a little bit of a preamble to explain what will come up on the screen. Before I just explain about the fruit, I just want to say what I didn't say last week about the subject of control. There was a slide that was there, but I just, for some reason, I just missed it out. But control often shows rejection. You know, we know people who, because of past rejection, they control everything to the nth degree. What they wear, where they go, what they do, who they speak to, what time they do it, and everything is so precise. I'm not talking about the organised person. I'm talking about that everything has to be controlled so tightly. Because if things aren't controlled, they fear what might happen because of past experiences to them. And sometimes it's a conscious or a subconscious power that they try and have over other people, acting superior, or trying to manipulate through being secretive. You know, power is knowledge, and if I don't tell you, you don't know, and therefore I've got one over on you. I don't trust you, so I'm going to keep it to myself. I'm going to be secretive. And yet there is no place with the presence of God for that. There isn't. And yeah, control happens as people suppress emotions, memories, hurt, rejection, and they build a tower around them. They build this tower, and often they will withdraw, they isolate themselves, they are secretive, they manipulate, because by doing that, they are in control. And they won't let people in because of a fear of what might happen. It may happen again. So it's not going to happen to me, I'm going to control. That's not really a healthy place to live, if I'm honest. God knows that. It's not a healthy place to be. You may think, well, it suits me. Well, you're going to miss out on a lot in life if that's where you've parked the bike, if that's where you live. Because there's far, far more enabling us to relate to people. And this is often seen within the church with very religious people. Actually, there's a form of their Christianity, but they want to control everything. That control, manipulation, and domineering all relate to witchcraft. You say witchcraft, you think, ooh. But then you say control, manipulation, and being domineering. You say, well, that's not, it is witchcraft. You go and read about King Saul and about what happened there. It's all about the spirit of witchcraft. And if you're not careful with that control and manipulation type of personality, that domineering way that you can behave, evil spirits attach on to things. And then you start to be influenced by things that are not the presence of God. And you know, these people will stay calm. I've got it all together. But you know, you wait till they're triggered. Then you get Mount Vesuvius. If you can remember Mount Vesuvius from school. The volcano that erupts. Aggressive. But you don't always see that. Because they're in control. I've got to be in control. So, I'm going to just look at the 3 roots of rejection. Rebellion, self-rejection, self-rejection. And I'm going to put some wordings on there which may pinpoint to some of the weaknesses you have. Or it may be a reaction of your flesh in certain areas. But if when you look at a certain list of words, there are several that you'd say, that could be me. I am like that. Then I'd say there's a root there that may need to be looked at. Now you've got to be honest, and you know what? If you want to look at that I'm going to put on in a minute, and disagree with everything, crack on. Because the only person that you're affected is you. That's the best way to put it. But if you want to take them, apologise that it's small. I will quickly read them. But to get them all on, I had to do it small. It's small or nothing. Not all or nothing, small or nothing. So I had to do it like that. So if you could just whiz down 2 or 3 for me, and then. So, under the root of rebellion, stop there. You can be harsh. You can be severe and rough, verbally. And I don't mean strong verbally, I mean, you know, I hear some people who are like, they can be quite severe in their opinions about people. You're quite harsh with people. Rejection of others. When you're under pressure, you walk away. I ain't talking to him. You'll talk to everybody else, but you won't talk to him. So if anyone said anything to you, you'd be like, well, there's nothing wrong with you, he talks to everybody. Yeah, but he's avoiding certain people on purpose because he doesn't want to talk to them, but he'll talk to everybody else. So he rejects other people, those who may have rejected you, or you perceive have rejected you, or may remind you of other people who've rejected you. You can be hard. You're not easily penetrated. Got that hard exterior. So the presence of God wants to come to you. And you're not, you know, Captain America. You know, hard and tough. But there's a hardness where God can't get into you. You're unyielding. Your unbelief, you refuse. Put another half a dozen, please. You have an undermining attitude at times. You're skeptical. Undermining attitude or doubt. You're defiant. Now, you may not be defiant for people to see, but in here you're defiant. Stuff you, right, listening to you. What have you got to say to me? Resistant, openly, you can be openly disobedient. Defy force, critical. Arrogant. Superior. You have that. I'm better. I'm better. Said him. Stubborn. You will not give way. You will not give way. Anger. Reaction there to a loss of control. So people come and say things, there's pressure put on you, and you get battles, and you get stressed, and then you start to get angry. Some people, it turns to being violent. Some are bitter. Bitter towards people and bitter towards situations that have happened. To the extreme, they take drugs. Even to the point of medicating because of stress. To remove emotional pain. Some will get involved in the occult. Legalistic. Church is full of legalistic people. An overemphasis on a principle. Well, you can't shout in the worship. How dare you get excited in the worship? We're meant to be. This is the house of God. Where were we? Legalistic, lustful. Oh, I don't get lustful. Power, sex, recognition, ambition, materialistic. You always know if a person is materialistic or not. If God said to you, give your house away, you wouldn't.
I would.
I believe you, Ronald.
I would.
I believe you.
Because I want to move.
I like it. See, we like all these things. Ambition. I'm not ambitious. Come on, man. Don't put a front on to me. It's now you and God. God's going to have a conversation with you about you. You can deny it all you want, but I'll tell you, God will, if you want to grow, some of these things have to be dealt with. Aggressive, offensive, hostile. You refuse affection. You will not accept comfort after a situation, a rejection situation. You could be given to call argumentative. You want revenge, I'm going to get him back, I am. Lack of trust. Refusal to trust in relationships. Never going to talk to him again. I'm going to go and do my own thing. Stuff him. If I don't see him again, I'm not bothered. But we put on this front sometimes. We mask a lot of those things. So that's the rebellion side. Put the next one up if you would, Sue. Self-rejection. This is on the flip side of the coin now. The first one would be low self-image. I'm of no value. You feel inferior. Everyone's better than me. You're inadequate. I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. You're sad, you have that unhappy feeling in times. Sorrow. You just got an anguish, a heartache because of a loss. And I'm not talking, for the first few months. I'm talking, I know someone who's 81 soon. She still grieves over her parents who died 30, 40 years ago. I'm sad that my dad died 25 years ago, but I don't sit here and cry all day. Shame, the powerful emotion related to one's behaviour and disgrace. We can try and mask some of these. There was a song that May Bevan did some years ago that we used to do White Faith Mime to, say, who's behind the mask? We'll put a mask on, and we often come to church with masks. We talk to people with masks. We behave sometimes the way we think other people think we should, or even religiously the way we think God thinks we should behave. That's how I'm going to behave. And then we've got this mask on. But who's the real you underneath all of that? Who's the real you? Guilt, feeling of doing something wrong. And I don't mean when you've done something wrong you feel guilty. I just mean there's a constant feeling of you've always done something wrong. You get a bit excited, I should have done that. Guilt. I said something, I should have done that. I feel guilty. That relentless guilt all the time. Self-accusation, putting yourself down. Self-condemnation. You cannot accept commendation from people. An inability to communicate. You're sunk. Suck your thumb. When things don't go your way. Fear of failure. What will happen if things go wrong? I can't cope with it happening again. Insecure. Constant disappointed feeling because your expectations are not met. You're lonely, but you isolate yourself. Some of these you go around in circles. You're lonely, you feel lonely because of self-rejection, but you're lonely because you've isolated yourself. Hopelessness. There's no way out of this. Wrong expectations. You assume too much from people or in situations, and then when you get let down, then it's always all your fault. Seeking to please people. Always wanting to please. Always wanting to please. And always wanting to please can lead you on the wrong path sometimes to make the wrong decisions and choices. Anxiety. Troubled. Fretful. You're worried. You're dejected. Infirmity, self-rejection can bring on a physical illness. The next one, this is self-protection, the fear of rejection. You've got a pressure to perform. that you must behave in a certain way for people to like you, and you want people to think you're good, so you behave in a certain way. You've been rejected before, and you think it's because you've said or done something wrong, so you are going to behave in a certain way. That's what I said. These things get on people who are religious, because religious people have got this form, but they don't know God properly. They've got this, I must behave like this. They're striving, they're trying too hard. Restlessness and internal driving, there's no rest inside of you. Pressure to achieve. I must succeed, otherwise people won't like me. I must be superior in all that I do. Competitive. No, I don't mean, there's a competitive, you want to win in a football game. Of course you do. I want to win when I used to play squash. I don't want to win, you ain't going to beat me. But I don't mean that, because if I won or if I lost, there we go, but I was competitive. But that person who fears rejection tries not to be rejected again. So they get competitive. They get independent. I can do it on my own. Don't need you. Don't need you at all. Oh, it's me and God. Don't need you. Of course you need us. We're a family. We're a body. You do need people. If you didn't need people, there wouldn't be a thing called the body of Christ, would there? There'll be the individual of Christ. And we're the body. We need each other. So we can't be independent. I can do without you. Self-centered. Only interested in yourself. Self-centered. It gets on my pit, actually, with people. Certain ones, it don't bother me. Certain ones just wind me up. If I'm honest. And self-centered is one of them. The person, everything revolves around them. Self-justifying. Always making an excuse. Self-righteous, never wrong. And in the church setting, it would always be, it's always Keith. Keith this, Keith that, Keith the other. Happy days. Criticism of others. Fault-finding, disapproving. Well, I like the way they played that song this morning. Too loud, too quiet. Oh, how dare they do that in church? Judgmental. A hostile, authoritative pronouncement about somebody else. You're jealous. You're envious. Self-pity. You're sad and sorrow about yourself. And those things cause you to withdraw from people. Pride. Well, I'm better than him. I'm better than him. Well, if I only did it, show everybody how good I was. I'm better than them. High opinion of your own ability. Possessive. You're perfectionistic. I must get it right. And you get all stressed if you... Of course, we all want to get everything right. We know what, we're imperfect people at times, and we don't always get everything right, do we? I know, I'm not to pick on Lorraine, not for this, just I know that from the church she's played in, incredibly, you've got to be perfect, got to be perfect, got to be perfect, got to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, they're going to shoot everybody. And it's like, of course you want everything to be as perfect as you can get it. It's music. If it's not played good, it sounds rubbish. But you know what, there are times you can't get it perfect. I know that because as soon as I say that, I'm making a mistake. So, you're never going to get things perfect all the time. But you put pressure on yourself to be perfect. False gratification. Smoke, drink, sex, relationships. All to mask the rejection. You go hunting for relationships to mask rejection that's inside of you. There was a thing that Michael read yesterday at the Discipleship College. And he's on about the desire that is in you caused you to do something. You're tempted, that was it. You're tempted because of the desire that's in you. And sometimes because of the rejection that's in you and the desire for certain things causes you to go after relationships because you want that to be satisfied inside of you. I don't mean that if you're a husband and wife, I mean there's something in you that causes you to go after. Men go after women. Always. So they don't think with the brain. I'm not trying to be rude, if you know what I mean. Can't say that in church. I just did it, there we go. Self-deception. No one understands me. Fear of betrayal. How can I trust anyone anymore? Unreal. You withdraw into your shell, you avoid. False responsibility. You cover up rejection by working a lot. Well, I'll just throw myself into this, and I'll throw myself into that. Shyness sometimes. You're uneasy in company, you avoid company, you can be timid. Those are the 3 roots. There's a lot of information there. It just blows your head when you first go through it. So I'll put that out this afternoon for everybody. But the long and the short of it is, if you look at the fruit, in other words, the symptoms, the way we behave and our attitude, if we look at that, it shows the type of root. If you are looking for pears, you go to a pear tree with roots that are designed to produce pears. If you want apples, you wouldn't go to a pear tree with the roots that are designed to produce pears, would you? You go to an apple tree. So each root produces the fruit that we've seen on there. And I've used this for many years, I've seen this in many years, and it is true in terms of the way people behave. Now, I'll leave that there, but I just want to go into some of the causes. This is more practical. The causes of rejection. And I want to give many, many examples here of things that could have happened. But a cause is a reason that something happened. Okay? What caused it? What's the reason it happened? And, there can be many causes of rejection in our lifetime. And I want to look at these areas from conception, from when we were first conceived, going up to our adult life. And I want to give some examples. Because in my experience, I've spoken to people. I remember being in Spain. In fact, Derek was with me. You probably won't remember. But we was in that church in Calamayor. Yeah? And there were 2 young boys that were there. And really nice young lads, 14, 15. Can't remember the name, I can picture them in my head, but there were 2 guys there. And I was talking about God loving us, the Father unto God. I remember I was talking about something along those lines. And as I was praying for one of the young boys, he just burst into tears. I'm like, what am I saying? What have I done? This young lad, he could speak broken English, someone interpreted for me. And it was all because that someone had told him that when he was first conceived, his parents didn't want him. And that's how far back for him at 15, that feeling of rejection and unwantedness was in his life. From when he was conceived first, his mom first found out that she was expecting him. They said they didn't want him, but they didn't get rid of him. And he'd grown up with this feeling of, I just don't feel wanted. Interesting, the things. Now, there's an author called Vernon Kelly. I don't know if John will have heard of these. Secret Life of an Unborn Child is the name of the book. And he says there that an unborn child is aware of a human being from the age of 6 months. And I'm talking when they're inside their mom, not when they're born. So it's from conception to 6 months within their mother's womb. From 6 months on, they start to lead an active emotional life. And they can sense at a primitive level, they can feel at a primitive level. So when a child is inside the mother's womb and there are parents or people pointing saying, we never wanted her or him, we didn't want them, they were a mistake and all that type of thing, that baby picks up on it. And then it's born, and then they don't understand why. They've got this feeling of all the time of, I just don't feel wanted. Well, you weren't, because you were told, and it went into your mind, and you didn't understand. You were just told that. It made you feel as a little unborn baby that you weren't wanted. And it's important because when a child feels and perceives, it begins shaping their attitude and expectations about themselves. So if you speak to your unborn child and say that they're accepted and loved and cherished and sing to them and that type of thing, there's more chance that they're going to grow up happy and secure than if you point the finger at your wife's stomach and say, we hate the baby, we don't want the baby, it's unwanted. It's going to have an effect on the person when they're born. And whilst some of us may sit here and think, cool, that never happened to me, there's a lot of people out there where this happens to them. A lot of people in my lifetime, and I'm no counsellor, but I know from my experiences with people, there's a lot of people I spoke to who they have this feeling of not being wanted. The pregnancy of their mom was unwanted, and it had an effect on them. They were even considered illegitimate. And if you go to Deuteronomy, he talks about the curse that comes upon 10 generations for babies that are born illegitimately. 10 generations as a curse there. And we don't think of this type of thing in life. We just crack on and wonder why we feel the way we feel at times. You know, even for a child who's joined a large family, you know, if there's already 10 kids, you may feel that nobody wants you. Because there's loads of you. You know, another cause of feeling rejected when you're little is if the financial problems in the family and you feel that the reason why your family have got no money is, well, it's because of me. If I wasn't born, they would have more money. So then you feel as though it's your fault. You take it upon yourself. And then you turn in on yourself and, you know, it becomes a rejection. You know, even when ladies fear the birth or fear deformity or things like that, it has an effect on an unborn child. Babies who are born to women who've been raped, incest, adultery, it has an effect on a baby, eventually on a person. Separation or divorce before the baby's born. You know, when there's been, you know, oh, I didn't want the child, the dad didn't want the babies, and then he leaves the mom behind, and the mom's on her own to look after the children. Trauma during pregnancy can have an effect on a person. But in Psalms 139, verse 13 to 17, we read that God wants you and accepts you no matter what was said to you or done when you were a child. That's what's important here. You know, you may have had a bad start in life, but God says, whilst it does matter, it doesn't matter, because I love you and accept you, and I wanted you. I knew you before you were born, the Bible says. In fact, I know the hairs on your very head. You're the apple of my eye, is what God says. So he wanted you, even though those things are sometimes deep-rooted in many of us because they go back to when we were first born or pre-born. And then you look at the birth itself, you know, sometimes some of the rejection that can be passed on to a child, some of the pain and the pressure and the mental pressure of parents, you know, sometimes you know, a cesarean is forced on you. You didn't want the cesarean, it was incredibly traumatic. It could, I'm not saying it will, it does, but it could have an effect on the child. You know, the things happen and it has an effect. The baby being separated from the mother at birth and the baby not being able to be held by the mom or fed by the mom at birth for whatever, because of an illness or something, say, that separation can leave them feeling unwanted and rejected. The baby that's been given up for adoption. The baby that's been born because another one has died in the family and this is a replacement child. Even to the point where if there's twins, if there's twins, and one is born and the other one's left behind, and they don't know there's a second one there, or a third one there if there's triplets, and the first one's born and everything's going on, and then sometime later, you know, they realise there's another one there. And we may think, well, that's that could have an effect on people. But you know, if there's a second one there, they could feel, oh, no one wanted me. Because their baby could feel things. And you know, sometimes we sit there and think, what a load of rubbish. To the person who felt that, it ain't rubbish. Yeah? If you go to a child in infancy, you know, when they're growing up, you know, we know the first few months and years of a child's life is foundational and formative. And quite often children mirror their parents. So I'll say, if you want to know what the parents are like, look at the children. That's my comment. And I've said that for many years. But children mirror their parents, and quite often the child's spirit is a child is an innocent little person whose spirit is open. And if they're influenced or things are done to them as a child, it can really mess their lives up. Words that are spoken: we didn't want you, we didn't want a boy, we didn't want a girl. I wish you were never born, you were a mistake, we didn't want you. And the interesting one, as I was researching this, it comes up here. What are the causes of rejection in infancy? How about this? Speech impediment. How about that? How about that? So I'm just in the same boat as everybody else. Prolonged illness. Hospitalisation. Yeah, I was there as well. Hospitalisation. Sometimes the way the parents behave and they speak about pain and rejection. See, there's things that go on in family life. If we only knew what was going on behind the doors of certain houses, it would shock us. Because we just sometimes think, oh, everything's fluffy, everything's nice. And then you start to listen to stories of people and you think, wow. Flip me. Ooh. School years, as you get a bit older, you go to school, you're over criticised as a child, you're never good enough. You got a B, the parents wanted an A. You get an A, the man you could have wanted an A star. You're never good enough. They can be over-disciplined. Some parents are just bonkers when it comes to being over-disciplined, and they're dominated by the parent. Can't do this, you can't do this, you can't go there, you can't say this, you can't meet them, you can't do, stay in. In fact, I'm not even going to let you cross the road. I'm going to take your hand and I'm going to walk you across. Yeah, but I'm 25, Dad. No, you're coming out the road with me. But you know what I'm saying? Try and put a bit of humour in there just to make it a bit. But being bullied, being treated unfairly by teachers or even your friends, children at school, embarrassing incidents at school that lead you to reject yourself. I used to hate it. I used to be in English. I never liked English at school. You'd have to read out of your stuff this novel. You'd all have to go around the class and read one page out of the novel. Well, God help me, that was great, wasn't it, for me? You can imagine the rubbish that was thrown at me by everybody. You thought they were funny. They were like, oh, not again. Mrs. Shackleton was her name, teacher. I think, oh, do we have to do this again? Off I go. Let me see how many words I can get through before I fall flat on my face. But that type of thing, but that's me. It could be different for you. You could have had a different experience, Parents who are disinterested in the child because they're always working. Parents who put too much pressure on children to succeed can lead to guilt and perfectionism. Religious pressure put on children. Man, if you don't think that one, you come to a few places with me and you see the way church folk put pressure on their children to behave in a certain way. You can't wear certain clothes. You can't put makeup on, God help us. Jesus, he says in the Bible, don't wear makeup, don't he, ladies? Some would say that to you. That's how far-fetched some dads would be. You can't do that, you can't do that. The religious pressure that's put on children. And then you wonder when the children get to a certain age and they say, adios. And they walk away. Because of that pressure you've put on them. And it's like, it's religious pressure. It's not a relationship with God, it's just religious. Kids who are laughed at, being put down. Injustice for being punished wrongly. The teacher picking on you. Then you get to a little bit older when you're in a family. And you're called names by other family members. Constantly criticised in the family. Or you come from a poor family. Again, I've got down here as a list: speech and learning difficulties. You stutter, that dyslexia, all those things that can hinder you as a person if you're in school. And when people find out, people can be cruel in what they say. Cruel parents, unhappy parents. Parents showing no interest in what you do. Lack of affection in the family. Because some children just like to be hugged. Some kids aren't bothered as much, but some children just like to be hugged. And if there's no parent there to hug them, inside of them, they fall apart. That's why I always hug my girls. I always have done for when they were little. My oldest one doesn't like me doing it, but I'll still do it. Come here, you. Oh, Dad. But she'll get past that, and then she'll come to me for one. But I'll still do it. How old is she now? 21 and a half. If you're watching Emmy, I'm talking about you. Lack of affection, separation, divorce, sexual abuse in families. Yep, it goes on. In churches, it goes on. Inability by a father or a mother to show affection and show their son or their daughter. And you know, daughters go to their dads quite often. Sons will go to their moms. We know that. So if you've got a daughter's father, go after them and hug them. And if they say, oh, Dad, leave me alone, still hug them. Still chase them until you give them a hug. And you know, eventually they'll melt and they'll let you. Ill treatment by step-parents. This is the classic one when, what is the phrase these days? Blended family, isn't it? I think that's the phrase they call it. You know, step-parents. You're not my daughter, you're not my son. Premature death of a parent can leave you feeling rejected, lonely, unwanted. Being overprotected by family members. Unreal expectations on you. In marriage, the separation and the divorce and the arguments, and one parent uses the child against the other parent as a pawn, and the to and fro in between homes, the insecurity, the abandonment, the uncertainty that goes on. All these things that go on in family life, and it takes its toll on people. Because at the end of the day, we are spiritual beings, spirit beings, but we have a soul. That's where our emotions and our mind lives. And you know what? We forget we're emotional people. And you know what? People say things to you, and it just inside. And that inside for some people stays with them forever until it gets dealt with. And then it starts to have an effect on your life. Abuse, I've got down here now. Before I go on to dealing with rejection, slightly more happier part. This is the sad part. Sorry, guys. But abuse, and I've got to say this because it's rife. Mental and verbal abuse that goes on. Negative pressure through words or thoughts. The secret weapon of people, silent treatment. And I'll say this, thank God my wife is not like this at all. Oh dear, no. The silent treatment that you get, something's happened and I'm not going to talk to you ever again, and I'm not going to apologise, I'm not looking at anyone because I don't want anyone to think I'm not talking about anyone. That's silent treatment. I'm going to talk to you, you've got to come and talk to me first, you've got to apologise to me first. Who do you think you are? Words spoken that manipulate people. They have an agenda at times. Physical abuse. Sometimes these are the easier ones to deal with. The verbal and mental abuse is harder. Sexual abuse creates deep wounds in people. And you know, this abuse is suppressed and hidden within people. And it occurs in families. I know pastors. I know their children. I know of situations across the land, you know, where this stuff happens. Yeah. The guilt, the fear, the confusion, the shame is humongous in people. The word abuse means betrayal. And many people who've been abused would identify with that. They feel betrayed. Violated would be a good word. And it leads to rejection. And it leads to self-rejection. And then it leads to people, you know, doing things to try and mask the pain and the hurt inside. Be a bit more positive, Keith. Okay. Dealing with rejection. I'm keeping on the time. Dealing with rejection. I want to go to a book. If you thought Zephaniah was fun, we're now going to Obadiah. Obadiah. Have you ever read Obadiah? Who's he? Obadiah. So if you go to your index, that's the best place to look. You go to Obadiah and realise, oh, it's just before Jonah. And then you say, well, that doesn't do me any good because where's Jonah? Obadiah. And there aren't even any chapters in Obadiah, it's that small. It's just Obadiah verse 17. Obadiah verse 17. Oh, Lord, it's great. Israel's final triumph is gone here. Verse 17. But on Mount Zion there shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. You think, what on earth has that got to do with this? On Mount Zion, on the hill of the Lord, there's deliverance. And you know, no matter what has happened in a person's life, this is what's good. God, and this isn't meant to sound flippant, God sees and God knows. God sees and God knows. And you know, he knows the baggage that people carry. And he knows what's inside of them. And he says, listen, just let me in. Because I can take that, I can carry your suitcase for you. And I can heal the hurt and the rejection. And I can set you, I can deliver you from the pain of history in your life. That's what he's saying. And there shall be holiness. In some translations, he says there shall be salvation. We know salvation, that word comes from the word sozo, S-O-Z-O, which means nothing missing, nothing broken, total wholeness in your life. Wholeness. Imagine a life where you don't have that baggage weighing you down in your mind, in your heart. Where you're free. Where you're free. The house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. Ooh, what's that mean? You can receive the things that God has set aside for you to receive. You can possess the things that he says are yours. What's mine? Emotional wholeness, mental stability, emotional stability, freedom from the pain, freedom from the hurt, freedom from having to protect yourself all the time, freedom from having to fear that people may reject you, which causes you to isolate yourself from relationships that are valuable to you, but you don't want to because you're scared that something may happen again. It's not their fault, it's because of something years ago that has got in you that you've never really got rid of. And I've been told by Christians too many times, well, I've forgiven them, it's dealt with. I've come to realise, no, you haven't. If I'm honest. Many will say, I tell the discipleship people about a lady, she wrote a book about it. She hadn't forgiven people. Because when you forgive people, you release it from your life. You release it and let it go. That's forgiveness. You let it go. You don't hold it against anybody. You don't hold anything against any situation that's happened to you. You just let it go. You're free. If you were carrying 3 suitcases, and I said, put them down. Yesterday, after discipleship, I had a great time when I left here. I only got to the army, speak to Julie, the washer's broke. You turn, go and buy a washer. So then I'm trying to carry it out the back of a car. Okay? Danny's helping me. And we're like the Chuckle Brothers. All right, me and Danny. You won't go through the front door, you won't go around the side door, you'll go through the gate. You won't go through the gate by about an inch either side. Okay, let's take off the polystyrene and the plastic. Let's try and get through. So then he scratches your hands because you're going down the wall. And you got about that much play either side. We just bought a washer. You don't want to go down the side of the house, do you? So you try to do it careful. Then we drop it, then we pick it up. Then we drop it, then we pick it up. We drop it, then we pick it up. Then I'm moaning, oh, Danny, come on, hold it. My hands are getting sweaty. Okay, put it down there. And we're doing this. I'm going to drop it. Okay, put it down. Don't drop it down. Put it down carefully. Anyway, so this is the two of us. It's quite amusing, really. Then we managed to get it into the house. And then we got to install this thing. Sometimes life is like that. We're carrying a washer that's too heavy for the two of us to carry because of the drum. we got tumble dryer toffee. I picked off the tumble dryer and put it down. I could do that, that was fine. I couldn't pick up the washer because the drum is too heavy. But just imagine if you had to carry the washing machine around with you all the time. You'd be exhausted, wouldn't you? But some of us are carrying around washing machines of baggage of hurt. And God says, come on guys, just give it to me, I'll take it for you. And then you've done it, and you think, oh, thank goodness that's over now. And then you just walk off. The lightness, because you put down the washer, the lightness, because you put down the suitcases. We know Jesus has dealt with that rejection. We need to possess what is ours in Christ. And what is ours in Christ is acceptance. We are accepted by him. Remember the old song, I'm accepted, I'm forgiven? Remember that one? Almost showing my age. Thank you, Kath. I'm glad one does. No, you don't either. Steve, you know it. That's showing your age. I'm accepted, I'm forgiven, I'm fathered by a true and loving God. I'm accepted. Anyway, it's a bit of a coy song, but the words are still powerful. I'm accepted by God. I'm not unwanted. I'm not rejected. I'm not, and I've told you about confessions. I confessed that over my life for years. I'm accepted. I'm accepted. I'm accepted.
Thank you, Lord.
I'm accepted. And we've got to take personal responsibility for our behaviour. We answer for our own conduct, nobody else's. Our own feelings, our own behaviour, our own attitudes. Our behaviour is our behaviour. Healing and wholeness, though, is ours. See, it's great when God does something for somebody else. But you know what? When God does something for somebody else, he's looking at you and says, come on, I'm waiting to do it for you. Oh, but it's great you've done it for them. No. Come for you. Come and do it for you. We know from Isaiah 61, we know from Luke chapter 4, the Spirit of the Lord is here to heal the brokenhearted, to set people free. We know that, because that's what he says in Luke 4. That's when Jesus came. And when dealing with rejection, it's vital to understand the Father heart of God. And this is where I'm going to finish this morning, because this, for me, was so interesting. And I hope it is for you. I want to go to Mark chapter 14. Mark chapter 14. Throughout the entire Bible, until the Gospels, God was never referred to in this way, until Jesus referred to him in this way. And I found this fascinating. But the significance behind it is immense. Mark 14, verse 36. Jesus said, this was a prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will. That is the first time in the entire Bible that God was referred, the word Abba was used. It was used by Jesus. And it was used by Jesus in his response to God. And you can see there that he was talking to God, his Father, not the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, God Almighty, creator of this universe. He was talking to him as Abba. We know that the Garden of Gethsemane was an incredibly intense time for Jesus. It was a very difficult time, obviously. But in that difficult time, he prayed, Abba, Father. And in Jewish culture, when a child addressed their dad, their father, with Abba, it denoted a very warm, familiar, respectful response to their parents, to their dad. But it was never in Jewish culture or in the Bible previously used in terms of God. God was El Shaddai, El Adonai. You know, Shalom, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Sikenu, Jehovah, all those God names that I will look at in a few weeks actually. But Jesus was the first to use Abba, and that is important. Let's go to Romans 8, verse 15, and I'm going to wrap this up. Romans 8:15. Romans 8, verse 15. For you did not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you received what? the spirit of adoption, for whom we cry out what? Abba, Father. A child who's been rejected wants to be adopted by a father. Wants a father to love them. And he says here, you do not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear. You don't have to fear being rejected again. You don't have to fear what's going to happen tomorrow or what might happen next week. But you receive the spirit of adoption. You've been adopted into the family of God. And we can cry out there, Abba, Father. Abba, Father. I remember when I got baptized, 13th of March.